maybe if it's for me, I will just leave the meeting and open it again.
Okay, it's also fine. Yeah, for me. Okay. I think we are good. Actually, to start, it's 5:02. Then we start the session, I would say. Welcome, everybody, to the Environmental Affairs panel on the 10th edition of ENE. I'm really glad to be here today with you all. We have the participants here that can open the microphone and make questions also in the chat. And we also, so that everybody knows, this has been live streamed on YouTube, and we also have students watching from there. At the moment we have 17 more watching on YouTube, and they can also propose questions from there. And then I will have also the opportunity. Mrs. Al-Riami will be helping me also with getting the questions, collecting the questions for the panelists. Thank you very much for being here. As I told you, we are getting back with the Environmental Affairs panel. It has stopped for a couple of editions, and now in the 10th edition, we are back. And we have a great panel today. Can I say that we are gender biased? It's only females that we have. And we will start with Mrs. Berthier, who is a senior lawyer and head of the EU Affairs in Client Earth Brussels office. But of course, let me give you a taste of the background of Mrs. Berthier. Mrs. Berthier has been admitted to the Paris Bar in 2005. Previously studied international and EU law at Paris Nanterre University. She also studied international economic law at Paris Sorbonne University and international law at the University of Reading in 2004. 1 year later, she was chargée de mission at the French Ministry of Environment and Sustainability. From 2016 to 2008, she was lawyer associate in the law firm Hugo Lepage and Partners in Brussels. And later on, she started work at Client Earth. She first started as an environmental justice lawyer, then as head of the environmental democracy, work on strengthening the rule of law. This included ensuring the implementation and enforcement of the procedural rights provided by the Aarhus Convention, access to information, public participation, decision-making process, and access to just environmental matters. I believe that my students for environmental law are by now very familiar with the Aarhus Convention. And since July of 2020, Mrs. Berthier is head of EU Affairs in Client Earth Brussels office. She provides the strategic direction, coordination, and oversight of the organization's work engaging with the EU. So, Mrs. Berthier, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Sandra and the university for inviting me. I'm really, really happy to be here today and to have the opportunity to share my experience, my working experience with you. I actually think it's a great initiative because I remember when I was a student a while ago, there was no such events or nothing. And so we were just studying, and then we're a bit in the dark as what we could do actually with our diplomas and our degrees. And so I think that's a great initiative. So I will tell you just a few words about my studies, and then we'll tell you more about the steps I've taken and how I ended up at Client Earth. So about my education, as Sandra said, so I studied law both French law and a bit of common law at Nanterre University in Paris. And then I specialized from the third years, that's how it used to work at the time, in public international law and in EU law. And then I've done a master in international economic law at La Sorbonne. And then I've done an LLM in Reading University in the UK. And at the time, there was no master yet in environmental law. So I just had some classes, one class in a master, or took the opportunity to be able to write my dissertation at Reading on the liability directive at the time, but no master in environmental law. So it was pretty new. So then I've started doing internships in big American law firms and decided to take the bar exam because, as I said, I mean, we didn't really know what opportunities we were going to have. I knew I didn't want to be a company lawyer. And so I thought that taking the bar exam would at least provide me with a job. And so I took the bar exam. I've done quite a few internships in this big American law firm, including in their environmental law department, not being exactly on the right side, but was useful to learn anyhow. I think it's always useful to know how the other side works. It's really interesting. And while taking the bar exam, I had to do an internship that was not in a law firm. And so I've done it at the Ministry of the Environment. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because the people were happy over there. Contrary to, I mean, that's my experience. Not everybody necessarily had the same experience, but I thought people really seemed to be happy about their work. And I guess the reason why was that there was not this business angle that you can find in big American law firm. So they don't have to bring money, they don't have to find clients, and they were just focusing on the work. And the work was just thinking of how the government was supposed to tackle environmental protection. So I wrote 2 reports. They kept me a bit, so they offered me a contract, short contract. And I wrote a report at the time on a carbon border adjustment mechanism and its compatibility with the WTO, but it was a long time ago. And I really enjoyed myself over there, but they couldn't keep me because there were no budget. The Ministry of the Environment at the time was one of the ministries that had the lowest budget among all the ministries. So that showed how environment was not a priority at the time. But fortunately, thanks to the people who I was working at the ministry, I've learned that people at Hugues Lepage law firm in Brussels were looking for a lawyer. And at the time, Hugues Lepage law firm was the biggest law firm in France focusing on environmental law. And so I was hired. I moved to Brussels because I could not refuse that opportunity and started to work there. And I think the lawyers hadn't realized that I didn't know anything about EU environmental law, but that was good for me. And so I've learned everything there about EU environmental legislation, and I advise companies on a very broad range of legal issues on chemicals with the REACH regulation, on ETS, on waste, I provided training to companies as well on how they should comply with the obligations under EU environmental legislation. So it was a really enriching experience. I've learned both on the content, but also on how to write as a lawyer, because that's really, really specific, writing as a lawyer. And that can be really useful. But at some point, after around 2 years, I felt I needed to do something more as an activist. And I thought I haven't studied 6 or 7 years to do something that I don't feel strongly about and that I don't feel passionate about. And also that I don't feel like doing every morning when I wake up. And so just at that time, someone with whom we were working on a temporary basis told me there's this American lawyer in town. he wants to open an office in Brussels, and check him out. So I looked on the website, and he was looking for a lawyer to open the Brussels office of Client Earth. And I read the job description, and I read an article that had been written about him in The Ecologist as a public interest lawyer, and the work he had been doing in the US. He used to be the head of the Nature Resource Defense Council, one of the biggest NGO in the US with hundreds of lawyers. And so I was so inspired, I really decided that's what I want to do. I want to use the law, I want to use my knowledge, I want to use my skills, and to put them at the service of a cause I believe in. And so I applied and I was hired. And so I was the first staff of the Brussels office of Client Earth. It was 13 years ago. And the organization grew a lot. So now we are more than 200 staff. We have an office in London, in Brussels, in Madrid, in Berlin, in Warsaw, in Beijing, and in Los Angeles. And so I started the Environmental Democracy Program, focusing on the implementation and enforcement of the Aarhus Convention with European institutions, and started to advise other NGOs as well at EU level, because they just don't have any lawyers working for them. And so that's a really big loophole, because if you want to influence the decision makers, you need to speak the same language than them. They need to understand you, you need to be credible. And there is a lack of lawyers in the NGO community. So that's why Client Earth is so credible as well, is because we know the law, we can speak with their lawyers, we can take them to court, and they know that. And so I've started advising the NGOs in Brussels, working at EU level, and also working more and more supporting the other teams within the organization, and kind of continuing to be a generalist as a lawyer. That's what I enjoy, because Aarhus is a bit different than the other programs, and it just underlies everything else we do in an NGO, because without having access to information, without participating in the decision-making process, or without having access to justice, there's nothing you can oppose, you can support, you can challenge. So I thought it was really stimulating. It was fun, and I've been having fun ever since. I think it's really important to have fun in what you do when you work, and to enjoy yourself and to be stimulated intellectually. I think it's really important to be able to continue learning throughout the years, throughout your career. But also, I wanted to change from the law firm to an NGO, because it has to have a meaning for you. It has to make sense, and you have to know why you're doing what you do. And so, yeah, so I've been the head of the Environmental Democracy for 12 years. The team grew. And since last year, I'm the head of EU Affairs. So the head of EU Affairs is about coordinating the work we do at EU level, because we've been growing so much that we need to be coordinated. We need to make sure that all the programs work together, that we don't reinvent the wheel every time we do something, etc. I represent the organization, and I support the teams with advocacy work, because our work consists in both litigation before the Court of Justice of the EU, but also at national level. But it also consists in doing advocacy work, lobbying, discussing with the European institutions, convincing them, influencing the law. And just to conclude, I think it's a fascinating job. What I like the most is that you are at the heart of the decision-making process, meaning you have to speak with all the decision makers, the European Commission, the members of the European Parliament, the representative of the member states, the NGOs, the lobbyists, the industry. So that's really interesting to have all these different perspectives. And yeah, and you have a great freedom as well. You have to care about money, because you always have to find funding, but at least you're free. You don't have a client to satisfy except the earth or the environment. The challenges, of course, there are some challenges. I think you understood the challenges. I lived in the law firm, so it's very stressful and yeah, the atmosphere is not the same. In an NGO, the challenge I think the biggest challenge is that we have a daunting task. So in brief, we want to change the world. We want to change the mindset of the decision makers. We want to change the way the decisions are made. We want to ensure the environment and the human beings are at the heart of the decisions that are being made. So we are a bit of a utopist, maybe. So it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of motivation. We win battles, we win cases, we are successful in influencing decisions, but of course we also lose battles, we also lose cases, and we're not always able to influence all the decisions. And of course, in front of us, we have the industry, which is super powerful. We have politicians that don't necessarily have the right mindset. And so it takes a huge amount of time to have concrete impacts. Sometimes it means it can be demotivating. And so we all have to find our own ways to keep motivated, to continue being motivated. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to speak more about that. The way I found is that I tend, when it happens, to focus on the work itself. And so to focus on the legal arguments that I need to find, to have the discussions I need to have, to find the right people to come and speak to you, and to focus less on the long-term objectives. That can be a bit discouraging. And then because the work is super interesting and stimulating, then until now it's been working. Thank you. I'm happy to reply to any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Berthier, for this open overview of your career and also of your motivation to work in the area. Then I would like then to open the floor for questions. We have many participants, so if any of the participants would like to make a question, please raise your hand so I can give you the floor. I hope everybody knows how it works. Or you can just open your microphone.
Yeah, I have my hand raised. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I could not see it, Anna.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now yes. So please open the microphone and speak.
Thank you. I just first want to say thank you to Ms. Berthier for your presentation. I really can resonate with the passion that you have for your work, and I think that's an extremely important part of the way you present what you do, and it's so inspiring to see how much you are passionate about it. So thank you, and I just really find your organization extremely interesting, and I just want to ask how much of, because you're from school, you're a French lawyer, so how much of that do you actually use since you now work in Brussels? So you're an international lawyer, it's outside of your jurisdiction. Do you only work in the international legal framework, or do you still use your previous knowledge of French law, or how does that work in practice?
Thanks for the question. No, so as soon as I started to work for Lepage, so as soon as I arrived in Brussels, I started to focus on EU law. So, and not so much on French law anymore. And then when I started to work for Client Earth, because it's an NGO, I had to withdraw from the bar because you cannot continue being at the bar and working for either a company or an NGO. And then I really stopped doing French law. So I really only focused on EU law and EU institutions. And yeah, so was kind of completely disconnected from the French setting. But I was really happy when 4 years ago I got funding from the European Commission to work on a project that was taking place in 8 countries, and I was responsible for France, Poland, and Belgium. And so I had to reconnect with the France, basically, and the NGOs over there, and the public authorities, and the lawyers. And it was about access to justice in environmental matters. But I was still focusing and intervening as an expert on EU law and not on French law. So yeah. So I stopped.
No, thank you. That's really encouraging for us since we are studying international law from the earliest part of our legal education. So that's actually really encouraging. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think I missed a hand of Anna. So is there anyone else? Please open the microphone and speak.
Hello, can you see me? Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
we can see.
Yes. So I was wondering about Client Earth. So could you tell us more about your organization, your goals? I know you said we shouldn't focus on long-term goals, but where's the vision of Client Earth? What do you hope or aim to do with your organization?
Sure. Yeah, so Client Earth is an environmental NGO, but it's a bit different than the other NGOs because it's really almost exclusively composed of lawyers. And so that's why it was, and I guess it still is so exciting as a lawyer to work for Client Earth, because I don't know of any other organization, NGO, environmental NGO, which is only composed of lawyers. And so the idea is really to use the power of the law to then ensure the environment is protected. And so we have different programs on climate, energy, forests, fisheries, trade, what else? Yeah, air quality, biodiversity, wildlife, and yeah, I think that's it. And ARIS, so environmental democracy. And so, yeah, so we are just, as any other environmental legislation, of course, want to make sure the environment is protected, public and human health as well. And we are so using the law in doing advocacy. So, for example, in the Brussels office, so we're working on lots of initiatives undertaken under the European Green Deal, adopted by the European Commission and the European institutions, and try to ensure that the directives and regulations that are being adopted are as ambitious as possible. And so in that work, we work with the European Commission, the MEPs, the Council, but also the European Chemical Agency and so on. We also do work at national level. For example, our air quality program has taken cases against national governments because they hadn't adopted their national plans on air quality to reduce air pollution in more than 11 member states. So that's also the type of actions we are taking. So yeah, so of course we're focusing on the long-term objective, which is to protect the environment. I was just saying that when we are a bit less motivated, because it's hard to fight against, decision makers, the industry and so on, I think it's a good thing just to focus on the work. And yeah, so, and Client Earth is, we also have an office in Indonesia, actually. And yeah, and the idea is also to support the rest of the NGO community, because as I said, strangely, NGOs still don't have enough lawyers working for them, especially at EU level. It's less true at national level. For example, if I look in France, there's a big legal network of lawyers doing litigation, going to courts, and doing advocacy work as well.
Well, thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, it's very informative. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yes, Ms. Battier, there is a question here in the chat. I will read in case, also that the others can know the question. So it's from Hanshir, and it says, first of all, very interesting story. And what was your most challenging experience so far in regard to study-working relation?
The most challenging. The most challenging, let me think. Well, I mean, every day it's a challenge. Every day you need to convince people. So we are really happy when we succeed in doing that, when we see our wording in the legislation, or when we win a case before the court as well. I mean, but I must say personally, the most difficult part, I guess, was really to start. So I'm sorry, I guess you still need to go through that, and you're going to go through that very soon. So maybe that's good that I speak about that, so that you know that you are going to succeed and you're still alive after that. And yeah, so I really at the time found it really challenging to know what I wanted to do and to find my path, and actually doing all these internships, no matter how painful it's been, both from a personal point of view, but also from a working experience, being on the wrong side, seeing stuff that you realize, actually, at least for me, that was not the right thing to do, but also from a personal point of view, not being treated necessarily the right way as a young lawyer or as a female lawyer as well, was really challenging, and learning and sometimes working with people who are not willing to take the time to train you as well, and impatient lawyers that would like to have a lawyer that already knows everything and is just operational from one day to another. It was really difficult. I think the beginning was really the most challenging, and it gets better. That's what I can tell you. It was really, really challenging. There was Sundays night were really challenging. Didn't want to go to work the next day. But with time, I'm really, really happy that I've done it, because I've learned so much on the content, on also how to behave, on the fact that I've been able to cope with these kind of difficulties. And it's very satisfactory when the people you've been working with at that time, you find yourselves on the same panels, or they sometimes ask you to take their children for internships. And then you say, aha, okay, I've made it. And yeah, but it was a challenge. It was really challenging. It was difficult. And it was a steep learning curve, but I guess there's maybe sometimes no way around it.
Thank you very much. We have a hands up from Annika Graf. So please open your microphone.
Hello, my apologies, I'll keep the microphone off, the video off, because my internet is not the best. First of all, thank you for being here and taking the time for us. And I have two questions. So one is, you said that at Client Earth, there are a lot of lawyers working. If you refer to a lawyer, does that mean that that person passed the bar at some point, even if they have to give up that, I don't know how to say it up, but like if they have to give up that position at some point? Because the way we're studying now is that we have an LLB at the end, and that means that we only have a bachelor, so we will never pass the bar. So that also means that we will never have, well, we basically only study EU law and international law, and we will never study proper national law. So do you consider someone like this also as a lawyer in that sense, or do you mean like, or do you refer to a lawyer in the sense of that they have passed the bar at some point? And then my second question would be whether you could give us some advice on what the most important characteristics would be for an applicant to be considered to work at Client Earth.
Thanks. So no, so all lawyers working at Planet Earth are not qualified lawyers. But saying that, to be perfectly honest, we consider it is a plus to be a qualified lawyer, simply because as well we do litigation. That's part of our work. And so litigation, to know how to do litigation, you need to do it. There's no way around it. And so that's really an advantage. So in terms of profile, we have the tendency to really think that being a qualified lawyer is a stronger profile. But as I said, not all lawyers working for Client Earth are qualified lawyers. Also, yeah, to do litigation, I mean, you need to be a qualified lawyer. Also, to even if you're not the lawyers representing the organization before the court, because we cannot represent ourselves. So we're always working with other lawyers to represent ourselves, and then we work with them on the application, on the argument, on everything. But you need also to be able to identify opportunities to litigate. And to do that, you need to have some background as well, sometimes in national laws, to know how the national legal system works, who has legal standing before the court, what type of decisions you are able to challenge, etc., etc. So it's definitely an advantage. Yeah. I don't know. Was there another part of the question? I don't remember.
No, that was the first question. You fully answered it, so thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. I see that there is another question in the chat, but I would like to leave it then for the final round so that we can also move with the presentations. Thank you very much, Ms. Berthier, and then I will keep the questions so that by the end we can reply to the other questions. And thank you everybody for jumping in the discussion. So now I would like to invite Mrs. Serra. I think Mrs. Serra is, yes.
Here, yes.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Serra is an associate legal counsel in the Climate Justice and Liability Campaign at Greenpeace International in Amsterdam. And from 2010 to 2016, Mrs. Serra completed a 5-year bachelor's degree at ICESI University in Cali, Colombia. From 2014 and 2015, Mrs. Serra provided free legal advice for people with limited economic resource at the same university. Then, from May 2015 until 2016, Mrs. Serra worked as a legal assistant at Fundación del Valle del Lili, advocating for the right to health or medical patients before constitutional authorities in Colombia. Later, she worked as a legal compliance assistant at a BTL Legal Group and was promoted to legal compliance coordinator. In 2018, Mrs. Serra pursued an LLM in international law and human rights, specialized in environmental law at Tilburg University. After completing her LLM, she worked as a shelter city program intern at Justice and Peace Netherlands. Within this context, she was a mentor of 2 human rights defenders. Her responsibilities were to make strategic plans to ensure that the HRDs had the opportunity to build a network in Europe. And in 2020, Mrs. Serra started to work as a legal unit intern at Greenpeace International, and in January 2021, Mrs. Serra was promoted to the position that she holds now of Associate Legal Counsel. So, Mrs. Serra, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Sandra, can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Okay. Well, first, I wanted to thank you for this wonderful invitation. I am really honored and happy to be here with you today. And as Sandra very well said, my name is Alejandra Serra, and I am an associate legal counsel for Greenpeace International, and I work at the Climate Justice and Liability Campaign. And we mainly do climate litigation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my work, but now that I was hearing Sandra like to talk about like my trajectory, I was thinking that it's really not a linear path, right? Quite the opposite. So yeah, but before I get to that and to give you maybe useful tips for you and your future career, I want to talk to you about a tiny bit of where I come from and also the work that I am doing for Greenpeace. So I am 28 years old and I am originally from Colombia, and here in that country is where I obtained my diploma and my license to practice law in 2016. It is also the country where I started a career working in human rights advocacy before constitutional authorities, as Sandra well said, and in labor law compliance. I was lucky enough that, for instance, the hospital where I worked in human rights advocacy was a nonprofit. So they did a lot of social work that allowed me to go before constitutional courts and help these patients to get the treatment that they needed. And that was actually my first experience to strategic litigation. Same for when I worked as a legal advisor at the law clinic of my university. That was also my first opportunity to lead small cases in different areas of law, and I did that for a year. And it also gave me the opportunity of understanding what strategic litigation was, and I'm going to explain you a bit more about that in a sec, in case you're not familiarized with what it means. So after working for 3 years in Colombia, I decided that it was time to pursue my life dream of becoming an international environmental lawyer. And I decided to come to the Netherlands for, the country's tradition and relevance in the field of international law and the high quality of the universities. So I did my studies on international law and human rights, specializing on environmental law at Tilburg University. So right now I am part of the global team inside of Greenpeace that supports the development of strategic climate litigation in different Greenpeace offices around the world, because I mean, even though Greenpeace is a very well-known organization, it is actually divided in several offices, national and regional, and that are up to some point independent. And Greenpeace International is one of those offices, but what we do is to coordinate and to support the work that other national and regional offices are doing around the world. So when I talk about strategic climate litigation, I am making reference to the cases that are aimed at exerting a bottom-up pressure on governments to influence their climate policies, for instance, or it's also litigation that is aimed at corporations to influence their behavior and strategies in relation to climate change, sometimes, for example, demanding accountability for the damages that they have caused. And this litigation is intentionally designed to achieve individual protection or recognition of human rights, such as the protection or recognition of the right to a healthy environment or the right to a safe climate. It's also aimed to improve climate policy, either at national, regional, or international level. And it is strategic because aside of this, or next to the legal part of it, it also looks to influence the public awareness. So in case of climate litigation, it would be the public awareness that climate change poses a serious threat to the rights of present and future generations. And this type of litigation helps us set precedents at domestic and international level that can influence climate litigation in other parts of the world. So I'm not gonna go into cases, but just to give you an example, and I'm pretty sure this case you've heard. An example of a strategic litigation would be the iconic case of Urgenda in the Netherlands, right? Or I don't know if you heard of it, but 3 weeks ago, the German Federal Constitutional Court also came out with a ruling that it's really important for the protection of the rights of future generations, and that will definitely influence the litigation processes around the world. So before I move on into giving you like tips and to the more practical aspects of my job, I also wanted to maybe give you some context so you understand why Greenpeace International is so involved in strategic climate litigation. And I think that to all of us is very much clear that we are on a state of crisis. And I'm pretty sure you know that the burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, industrial agriculture, and many other human activities are causing climate change, right? They're increasing the concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which in return is causing the increase in global temperature at an alarming rate. And according to the World Meteorological Organization, last year we reached 1.2 degrees of global warming above pre-industrial levels. And at this temperature, climate impacts are already falling disproportionately on populations who are vulnerable due to poverty, gender, age, geographic location, or cultural or ethnic background. And what is very unfair about this situation is that, oh, I'm sorry. I think I lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. And what is very unfair about the situation is that these populations who are the most impacted by climate change are also the ones that have contributed the least to the climate crisis. So just to give you a tiny bit more context, and then I promise I'll move on to more practical matters, I want you to think about the island and coastal communities that are right now experiencing more intense and destructive tropical storms, or to think about the Pacific communities that are losing their islands to rising sea levels, and with them losing their cultures and everything that they hold dear. Or to think of how in other parts of the world, and I think we've seen this very clear in the past 2 years, forest fires are affecting indigenous peoples and communities. And also how even in the richest countries in Europe, climate-induced heat waves are affecting the rights or threatening the rights to life and health of old people and of people with disabilities. So I think it's becoming very clear that climate change is a human rights issue and that it is the biggest injustice of our generation. And all of this that I have been telling you is backed by the best available science, right? After the publication of the 2018 IPCC report on climate change, or on the impacts of climate change of 1.5, we now know that if we surpass this temperature, we could have catastrophic impacts on human systems. And some of these impacts could even be irreversible. So it's very urgent that states take all the measures that they can to limit global warming or to keep global warming below 1.5. And another piece of research that is very much important to climate litigation and to the work that we do in Greenpeace is it's a study on the responsibility of the carbon mayors. So all the 90 major carbon producers of the world. And this research, which came out in 2013 and was published by Richard Heady, showed that these carbon mayors are responsible for 2/3 or for almost 2/3 of all the anthropogenic CO2 that has been emitted since the 1950s. And so these studies are very important for us and to our work, because the fossil fuel industry can no longer hide behind that flawed myth that everyone is responsible to climate change, therefore no one can be held accountable. On the contrary, these findings provide the necessary evidence to affirm that the fossil fuel is the most significant contributor to today's climate crisis, which is affecting the human rights of millions around the world. And these both scientific findings that 1.5, that a global warming of 1.5 is dangerous to human rights, and also the findings that fossil fuel is the lead or the industry that has contributed the most to climate change, not only creates responsibilities for corporations, but also for governments, right? To regulate these industries and to reduce the fossil fuel reliance for energy production or as an economic activity. So in the climate movement, we are seeing how these findings are empowering people to bring justice to their families, communities, and humanity. And it is also raising public awareness that climate change poses a threat to the people's rights. And we're seeing this wave of climate litigation where all over the world, NGOs such as Greenpeace, but many others as well, are supporting communities to go before courts. And we are finally understanding the importance of working with these communities, and that they are not victims, but they are our partners and they are leaders in this climate movement. So as a lawyer in the legal unit of Greenpeace International, my job is to provide support to the national and the regional Greenpeace offices that want to start a climate litigation process in their jurisdictions, either against governments or corporations. And my job is to find ways to use human rights, climate, and biodiversity law in a creative way to achieve those changes that we want to see. So on a regular basis, I have to work with national lawyers, with experts, with scientists, and with Greenpeace employees all over the world to help them build the cases that are strategic and that will bring justice to the affected communities in their own terms. And I really want to make emphasis on this last point, because our job as climate lawyers, but also as human rights lawyers, is not to impose the solutions that we think the communities need. This was something that was very common in the past, but now we've started to understand that we need to listen to the communities and to understand their needs and what justice means to them. So as part of our team in Greenpeace International, we also work with people that is an expert on communications or on social media, and they help the regional offices to develop the engagement strategy of the case, because ultimately, if we lose the case, which is a possibility in litigation, we at least manage to raise public awareness, and that creates change. And also, sometimes we go to courts even without, thinking or knowing that there's a huge possibility that we will lose, but we think that sparking these conversations in the judicial system and also in the academic world is super relevant and will pave the way for future litigation. So now, moving into more practical things, what my point with all of this, this presentation, was to tell you that there are many opportunities in the field of environmental law. One of the main ones, as I showed you, is climate litigation. Where in addition to human rights law, people with experience in business and human rights and energy law are becoming more and more relevant. And also, I think that the climate movement is starting to realize the importance of targeting financial institutions, such as banks, asset managers, pension funds, because these institutions are failing to assess and to reduce the climate-related risks in their portfolios. And there are, therefore, not complying with their fiduciary duties. So they're actually risking people's pensions and investments, which could be very detrimental to the rights of present and future generations. So climate justice initiatives against the financial sector are becoming a priority for several NGOs. And also the biodiversity field is gaining more attention in the environmental movement overall, specifically the human rights-based approach to biodiversity litigation, which personally is one of my favorite fields. And we are understanding that a strategic link between human rights and biodiversity could be the key to achieve the protection of ecosystems and species around the world. And this, of course, is from a litigation perspective. But having in-house lawyers helping companies transition into sustainable models, or for instance, advising financial institutions into how to transition into green investment is also essential to prevent the catastrophic impact of climate change. So as I was telling you at the beginning, there is not such thing as a linear path in an environmental career. And you see how connected the environmental legal field is to many other fields, right? So don't be scared to begin with an internship or a junior position in a human rights organization or in a company. You know, there is a lot to learn. Even if you want to have a career in the environmental field, all these skills that you can develop in these companies or human rights organizations is crucial to the environmental work, especially in climate justice. And I think that is super important. This is like a very personal advice I can give you, that you need to keep in mind where you want to go, right? And to understand what are the skills that you need to develop in order to get there. So, and yeah, mainly focusing on developing those skills. And also, in my case, for instance, when I started looking for a job in the Netherlands, I thought that having 3 years of experience in human rights and in litigation was enough, and it wasn't. I actually had to start all over with internships until I could finally, until I finally got an offer for a contract. So it's a tricky field that we're at, but definitely don't be demotivated if this happens. You know, if you have to start over, or if you maybe get rejections, that is part of the process, is natural, is normal. And trust me, now, I mean, it's super easy for me to say it right now because I have been in your position and I hated it when people told me this, but everything is a learning opportunity. And it really is. Even the failure, even the rejections is a learning opportunity. So I'm sorry, but now I'm the one that has to tell you this. And so, yeah, and what else can I tell you? Oh, and just like more practical tips. If you want to, for instance, pursue a career in the Netherlands after your master's degree or your bachelor degree, bear in mind that having the language is crucial. So as a Colombian who only speaks Spanish and English, to me it was very daunting also to come out to this labor market in the Netherlands, where the majority of organizations value if you can speak Dutch. This is not the case at Greenpeace because it's Greenpeace International, but for Greenpeace Netherlands, you need to have the language. So I wish I knew this before, but I'm already learning Dutch, but I wish somebody had told me that way before. And I just encourage you really to understand also the culture of the country where you're at, and things like how do they like CVs? How do they like motivation letters? Because I think the first time I applied for a job in the Netherlands, I had a 3-page CV and 2-page motivation letter that, of course, they immediately rejected and didn't even read. So then I started to understand better how things worked here, and I understood that, okay, it's 1-page CV letter, one page for the CV and 1 page for the motivation letter. So just take your time, learn the tricks and tips of each country, and keep knocking on doors, really. Like, just as a last remark and a funny story, I actually got the internship at Justice and Peace because I called. There was no vacancy, nothing. And I called and I say, hey, I like your work. I read that they were doing this pro bono work in different parts, including Colombia. So I said, you know, I'm a Colombian lawyer. I could help you, you know, pro bono with the research you're doing. And they were like, yeah, we actually don't need more hands on that, but there's an internship opening coming, and, you know, we will like consider you. And that's how I found that opportunity of that internship. So just to finish, I want to leave you with one thought. Our generation is really the last one that can take steps to avoid the worst impacts of climate crisis. So as future lawyers, I invite you to be aware and to raise awareness of the responsibility that we have to protect the rights of present and future generations. And no matter the field you're at, trust me, I'm sure that we can all contribute to change and to a future where everyone can enjoy a safe climate and where we can enjoy of a rich biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Serra. I would like straightforward, because we have a few minutes. I would like to open the floor for questions. Let me see the chat. I don't see, but any of the participants. I see Alejandro. Please open your microphone.
Hola, Alejandra. I'm also Alejandro. Very nice to meet you. Very nice talk. I really liked it. I'm currently doing an internship that eventually led me to realize what I want to do for my master's. And it's about energy and the transition of it. It's in Groningen. It's also in the Netherlands. So I wanted to ask you about it. I heard you were doing a lot of stuff in Greenpeace about transitions in many aspects of it, but you didn't talk about it. Is there something that it's being done in the energy transition? Because I do believe it's something that is very needed, because, well, you talked about a lot of fossil fuels, and well, the energy transition and to greener stuff, it's what's also needed. So I just wanted to ask you what there is to do, or what have you heard that Greenpeace is doing on this regard?
Well, I would say there's a lot to do. So if you're working as an in-house lawyer, it's a way to, I mean, one of the things you can do is to advise the company, right, on what is the best way to achieve that transition. I'm not an expert on energy law, and at such, at Greenpeace International, what we're doing is to put pressure into governments to commit to more ambitious targets. And in order for them to commit to these ambitious targets, they need to start working on a transition plan that hopefully is a just transition one, because we don't want people struggling, losing their jobs, and just because we need to move forward to new ways of producing energy that are safe. And also, as part of our work, we're also putting pressure into companies so that we're starting to do these litigations. There's actually one right now at the Netherlands, and the decision comes out next week. And we're basically, we want the courts to hold fossil fuel corporations accountable for the emissions and for basically causing the climate crisis that we're at, and that is putting in danger the human rights of so many people. So I think that right now that's our focus, but for sure, like, to be able to advise these corporations or to provide guidelines on how to achieve this just transition is something that is coming. Sorry, I don't have more information. It's not my field of expertise, but I hope this is somehow helpful.
No worries, it's very nice. Thank you. Gracias.
Anna, you have your hands up, so you next.
Yes, thank you. Just first, Sandra, thank you very much for your presentation. It's also very nice to see how passionate you are about what you do, and you're an amazing public speaker, I have to say. So that's really interesting to listen to. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. The first one is, how do you perceive your own transition from internship to being offered a contract was? What kind of say tips would you give for someone who is looking for sort of that situation, or how do you turn an internship into a job offer? And the other question would be how, or what's the biggest challenge in having to deal with different lawyers from different jurisdictions who are dealing with their own national laws and issues in their own countries, being someone with a specific background in Colombian law?
Yes, so regarding your first question of how to turn an internship into a job or a more permanent position, I think it was a mix of several things. It was also luck in a way that a position opened. Sometimes organizations just don't have the resources to hire people. So you can be a rock star, but they just don't have the possibility to offer you anything else. And this is something very normal, I think, in the field of human rights and environmental law and within NGOs. But in my case, I think it helped me that I was very proactive. I mean, I'm also older, I'm 28 years, so I have been developing certain skills. And I think that, for instance, my knowledge on biodiversity, which was my main focus during my master's, my thesis was on wildlife law, wildlife international law. I think that definitely helped me. And what I did is that there is a case ongoing, and I saw that there was like a tiny bit of biodiversity, but it wasn't very developed. So I started to pitch ideas, and they liked it. So that I think gave me more opportunities to gain responsibilities and to just show them my skills. But of course, this took a lot of years and a lot of preparation on my side. So yeah, just try to do your best and be proactive. And to the second question, can you repeat the second question? I'm sorry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's about like the challenges that come with having to engage with several lawyers from different jurisdictions, and how to sort of balance that.
Yes, right. So I think that first we need to always recognize that they are the experts, right? So if we were doing a case in Colombia, it would be easier for me to to advise on a domestic level. But so what we do mainly is that we respect the lawyer's process because they are the ones who know the laws in the jurisdiction that they want to start the litigation. But we advise on how climate litigation is developing in other countries and what useful case law, right, there is that could support the arguments of the case, or how to use, for instance, certain law treaties in a strategic way, if of course the country had ratified those treaties. So it's more like just to help them to develop the case from a strategic point of view. And also we provide, as I said in the presentation, a lot of support regarding the engagement and communication strategy, because that is also key to public interest and strategic litigation.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Serra. Due to the time, I also would leave then final questions to the final rounds, then so we can keep track of the time. Thank you very much. Then I would invite Mrs. Chin. I see, but I don't have, but I saw that, yeah, Mrs. Chin is here. I can see her now. So Mrs. Chin is the founder of Green Transparency, a boutique consultancy firm that helps clients enhance their environmental strategies. She represents her clients in various roles, include as Stop Ecocide Foundation's diplomatic liaison and strategic projects contact point and senior legal advisor for the Institute for Environmental Security. Mrs. Chin is also a member of the IUCN World Commissions on Environmental Law. Originally from Malaysia, Mrs. Chin started her studies in business administration in Malaysia, eventually obtaining an MBA in international business with distinction from the Southern Cross University in Australia. Shortly after this, she pursued a law degree at our university, graduating in 2013 with a cum laude. She also holds an LLM in public international law, specializing in oceans, the environment, and sustainability. Her career highlights include appearing on Euronews Hard Talk program as a legal expert on environmental crime, writing for various legal resources such as Opinion Juris and Harvard's International Law Journal, and being featured by Vogue Spain in 2020 as one of the 7 female environmentalists to watch out for. Mrs. Chin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Again, massive thanks for inviting me to speak to the students. I was in your position 8 years ago now. Wow. And yeah, if I could do justice to what Sandra just spilled out as sort of like my background, it didn't happen also like Alexandra said in a linear way. I started with a more business focus, and then suddenly I realized, hey, you know what? I know how to read. Why not study law? And it was really by a big, huge coincidence also that I ended up in the environmental field, because like I said, I was more focused on business initially. But having moved to Europe, I thought, okay, what, if there's anything interesting to study, what's there to study? Studied law, didn't do so bad. And back in the days, there were several specializations, which I think still applies to you guys. And I was quite adamant in the beginning, I think the first 2 years, I thought, well, I'm doing very well with EU law. Why don't I specialize in EU law and find a career in EU, on EU law? Well, fast enough, when we went for a day trip to Brussels, they said, well, we don't hire non-EU member states to work at the Commission or the Council, or the Parliament or whatever. Then I thought, okay, I'll drop that idea. So then I decided that I should specialize in public international law instead. So be more of a generalist, you know, in human rights. But unfortunately, my supervisor at that time pushed me to write my thesis on international criminal law. So in a way, it's not linear because I started doing my internship in year 3 as opposed to year 4 because somebody in year 4 had told me that it's really hard to get an internship. So you better start early. I started in year 3 and I ended up doing 4 internships. First one was with the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs, and then that was done in parallel to the Institute for Environmental Security. So I was doing that at the same time. And then soon enough, I was very interested in the moot court, the Tell This Moot Court process that's organized by Leiden University. So I ended up also doing an internship with Leiden University. And towards the end of my studies, I was recommended to do a report for a consultancy firm called Pantea. And a lot of students at that time were also doing their internships with Pantea. But I was picked out to do a report that was for the International Law Organization as opposed to the OECD. The OECD was hiring a lot of interns and it was more like a stock taking exercise, whereas mine was really going deep into different laws on water navigation and whatnot in the EU. And it was from there that I realized it's quite a nice thing to have your name put on a report. So officially, my first publication was for the International Law Organization, Labor Organization, I'm sorry. And I had to ask for it. It wasn't automatic. I had to ask for it. I had to ask my supervisor at the consultancy firm whether or not my name was going to appear on this because it was just 2 of us writing this huge report. And eventually there were 6 people on the report, then 6 names on it. Sometimes it's unfair, but you know that happens. So International Labour Organization, I was with a bunch of other institutions doing internships, but it led to a job. So I was an intern with the Institute for Environmental Security, and my pitch to them was, you know, I'm from Malaysia, and you guys are looking at environmental issues. I see it happening before my very eyes. It's only natural that I'm addressing this, you know. So I wrote a report on the ASEAN Transboundary Haze Pollution Agreement and how that's being implemented by the Southeast Asian countries. And surely but slowly, I realized the NGO field, you know, a little bit like what Anais said, you know, she started in the corporate world and realized, you know, where she's comfortable. I felt very comfortable in the NGO field. So again, like I said, I've gone through the governmental with the Dutch ministry. It was in, you know, to my nature, it was a little bit too bureaucratic, a little bit slow. It's policy making, it's going to Brussels, negotiating and whatnot, and it was on trade. With the consultancy firm, there was also too much bureaucracy for my liking. And then with academia, it was also a little bit too much bureaucracy for my liking. So, but that's just me. So I stuck to the nonprofit field. I eventually became a legal projects officer for the Institute for Environmental Security, having done an internship with them. And it was definitely thanks to them that I know so many people these days. Like Anais, I know your colleagues Sophie and Christian in Berlin in the UK. I know David, who is now with Interpol, used to be with Client Earth in London. And then, yeah, Alejandra, I think I know Richard and Charlie, good friends. And yeah, so what I do these days is I no longer wear my nonprofit hat full time. Instead, I am a freelancer, and via my contacts, I help them with, you know, you guys were talking earlier about strategic litigation. Mine is more strategic advocacy. So having known so many NGOs working for the same thing, to protect the environment, different agendas, different strategies to get there. My job is to understand the strategies and make sure that they work harmoniously also with each other, because you don't know this, but a lot of NGOs also have a certain rivalry with each other. And for me, why pick out the details when we really don't have the time? It's a climate emergency that we're facing right now, and there's so many things that we can do. So yeah, I can say that part of the beauty of my job is meeting a lot of people, also understanding what it is that drives them. So what I'm saying here is people from, the grassroots level, the youths, the climate ambassadors, to not to blow my own horn here, but John Kerry that I had a conversation with, or the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, a small island state in the Pacific, who with Stop Ecocide Foundation were trying to help, because they are victims of sea level rise, and they have contributed negligible amount to carbon emissions. And it is their story that we're trying to tell and push and also promote at the international level when they have no resources to do so. That's how we step in, or that's how I try to step in on behalf of either myself or them or another NGO to make their voices heard. So a lot of things happen in sort of like a very opportunistic way. It was also by luck. It was also, just keeping my eyes and ears open to who's who. Have you seen this person before? It's a very small field. The environmental field is a very small field. So after a few years, I already see the same faces, the same names. They know you, you know them. And, you build the rapport from there. I really don't have much else I would like to say about myself at this point, because I'm more eager to hear what sort of questions you guys have in order to help you guide your way through, really. So that's the end of my presentation, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chin. Then I jump directly also, because we have a hands up from Lauriane, and then I give the floor so that the discussion can move on without delay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was really interesting. You have such an incredible career. I was wondering, you mentioned that you did your first internship for the Dutch government, but
Yeah.
did they actually look at what you did before? Because you had you studied international business and so on, or did
No,
they
not
just...
at all. Not at all. I think at that time I was very, I don't know if you guys are still writing papers in year 3. I wrote a paper on the EC biotech case. I was very interested in GMOs and how this played out at the WTO. I wrote my paper on that, and I believe I got my internship through the lecturer himself, who was at that point a policy advisor to the Dutch ministry. So yeah, I think there is a role in there, but also, I mean, it really depends on you, who you dare to speak to, and whether or not there wasn't even a position open. I just said, I'd like to do an internship with you guys, and that was it. So they drew me up a contract for 3 months, which was a mistake because they knew I was doing it in parallel with IES. And I said, I can do both at one time. And they drew me up a 3-month contract instead of a 6-month contract, because they thought, okay, you start with this and then you can continue with that one. But that was a mistake. But that's fine anyways. Yeah.
Yes. Someone else from the, I don't see hands, but you can open the microphone.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question. What would you say is one quality that a completely newcomer to the field should have, especially because you have sort of the same educational background that the students watching you, will have as well? So what's kind of the most important thing to be able to show if you want to sort of break through from the lowest level and the entry level?
Look, I started with research. So I started not talking or being on panels or, have a public sort of like representation. No, it's all through what you write, or at least I felt it was all through what I write, whether there was quality in it. And then slowly but surely, like I said, if you put your name on something, then you build yourself up as, let's say, an expert in that topic. So there are students I know who would probably go for an academic career, and it's also for them to pick and choose what sort of like topic they'll be writing about, so that eventually people would recognize them as, having written this in the past or several articles on the same issue in the past. And that, I think, it really is all up to you what you would like to focus on, because I can tell you that I've written quite a number of things, with one recently for Harvard International Law Journal. And, the demands there was, yes, it's law. It's the work that I do on ecocide. So that's using international criminal law. I also had to write for Global Affairs magazine for Spain, and that I didn't get much instructions. I was just told to write so that the normal person, mom and pop, could read it, about ecocide, the history of Polly Higgins, who I knew very dearly. And yeah, I think to start off, I definitely had a conscious decision to choose public international law and human rights as my starting point. But it's so very different the way I experienced it, because like I said, in my first 2 years, I really wanted to zoom in on EU law, and then realized that, no, I'm not going to have a career there. But guess what? When I was with the Institute for Environmental Security, I was working on an EU project looking at EU law, EU Environmental Crime Directive. So, there are some things that you wish for that will not happen the way you wish it to be. And there are some things that you try and avoid like a plague. I tried to avoid international criminal law like a plague, but then I was told to write my thesis in that light. So I thought, oh, nah. So I had to break down the Rome Statute, even though I was specializing in, public international law. And look where I am today. I'm fighting for, the crime of ecocide to be recognized at the International Criminal Court. So yeah, it's all a jumble. I would like to say that, sometimes to have specializations here and there, very odd ones, some that don't match very well with what you studied, that's also fine. As long as you do your research, as long as you know what comes out of your mouth is correct, no one needs to double check you, you're good. Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chin. There is one hand up. Kun, the floor is yours. Kun, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you
Yes,
are.
yes,
Okay,
now yes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a few questions about the practicality of your organization. Like how does it function? You mentioned that you provide strategic advice.
Yeah.
Is that like long term or short term?
Oh, it all
And-
depends. Yeah.
And what does that look like? Is it correspondence, or do you get a Zoom call? Do you meet up physically? What does your workday look like, basically?
Oof, oh my. So my work day started today with talking to people in the film industry. And it was a Zoom call. I mean, for the past year and a half, it's all Zoom and not in-person meetings. Much of what I do is most effective in person. So as Green Transparency, me as a consultancy, sometimes I don't appear as Green Transparency. Sometimes I appear for whoever I'm representing at that day, time, date. And usually what I do on a day-to-day basis, if say I have a trip to New York and it's the UN Climate Action Summit or the SDG Summit or whatever summit it is, it's 1 entire week or 2 entire weeks. And I'm there mostly to show up, know who's who, join side events, speak to certain people, if there are meetings that my clients would like me to take on their behalf, I'm more than happy to. Or if there are meetings they don't even know that they need to participate in, I'll tell them that I'm going to be there. Is there something you'd like for me to bring up? So it can range from very small things, which is, which oftentimes is pro bono, it's just free, to things that are paid for, which is like trips or hotels, going to Geneva for the Human Rights Council meetings, and connecting with UN Environment, for instance. It's a broad range of things, but I mentioned that I had a call with people from the film industry this morning, and they're called the Creative Compass Collective, and basically they are filmmakers from LA, US basically, and I connected to them via Movies That Matter Film Festival, who I was representing as Stop Ecocide Foundation, and I had to moderate a roundtable. But prior to that, I've already known Movies That Matter Film Festival for so many years. They always call us in as NGO representatives every year to connect with the activists or the people who are featured in independent environmental films, and we're supposed to help them with the advocacy or help them spread the word about the films, blah, blah, blah. But all I'm saying is that how I got here was I've been asked to help with thinking about strategic advocacy for independent films on the environment, on the climate, because oftentimes these two industries, like the film industry and the NGO, they don't connect at all. They connect only after the fact that the film is done, but in the process of making the film, there's so many things that one could inject into the whole process so that you create a bigger impact as a filmmaker with your film, if it's hashtag human rights issue or hashtag women's issues or environmental issues. I come in as somebody who know the people in the game, know what happens when and where, know how a certain person acts or is susceptible to ideas or not. I also know people to avoid, and there are many things that I need to keep an eye out on. So it's really global affairs issues. And yeah, I really hope that answers your question, Kun. I'm so sorry if I went off tangent here.
No, it's okay. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. It sounds a little bit hectic, but also super fun to do from day to day.
Yes,
So,
very.
There is next, Anna.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a sort of clarifying question because it wasn't very clear to me if you founded Green Transparency yourself, and how did you get to the point where you said I have enough knowledge and experience to found my own thing and be able to get it up and running and have people work with me or for me? So like at what how did you get to that point where you decided to found it?
When I was working in the nonprofit sector, I realized that there was a gap. I realized that a lot of times environmental issues are not seen or addressed hand in hand with rule of law issues, so governance issues, corruption issues, organized crime. And I thought that if there was one organization doing this really well, it's Global Witness. Patrick Ellie, a very good friend of mine, they address it very well. They come out with videos, exposés, reports, and whatnot about these two, issues cross overlapping. And I felt like, Green Transparency would be a great name initially for a nonprofit. But then I thought to myself, there are too many nonprofits already out there. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there's anything, I would like to, fill a gap and fill that gap really nicely. And I didn't go off establishing this thinking that I'll have a bunch of clients. No, it really is, again, word of mouth. Do people know you? Do people know what you do? And it is really my first clients were all people that I knew and I worked with in the past. So it wasn't very easy to go into this whole idea, going independent and whatnot. But I have faith in the whole process. I have faith in myself. And I also, it's a process that keeps growing. So like I said, going into the film industry right now wasn't something that I planned 5 years ago, but I noticed that there is a gap. And, you know, who's to say maybe Green Transparency will be that PR firm for the good people in the future. There's so many PR firms out there, and they're huge, and they're advising governments and NGOs as well. And I thought, well, I think that's a market. So yeah, I guess that's the business background in me talking.
And just the last question, because I think we're running out of time. Having been a student from our program and having a background exclusively in international law, have you ever felt like you have been at a disadvantage when it comes to opportunities because of what was established earlier about not being licensed, for example?
It may be a challenge at first, especially within the Netherlands itself, where, you know, there's this difference between a university and an applied sciences university. But that didn't hold me back, because, you know, if you do well, I graduated cum laude, so it's easy for me to get into a university without having to do a pre-master's, or, you know, do another year somewhere, or go to the UK and pay a bunch of money to go to Cambridge or anything like that. I think it's, you know, good grades got me somewhere. And for me, it's also fine to have a gap here and there as you build sort of like your interest in something, and then making sure that it's money well spent in the future. If you're going to specialize in something else when you do your master's and not law, that's fine, but that's because you take time out for yourself. And like I said, I'm not very, you know, I'm not one to be easily dejected if I get rejected, because guess what? I supervised Leiden students at some point. You know, I supervised over 40, 50 students just through my work itself. And yeah, other students from the United States, when I talk to them, they'll also ask me, is it necessary to go to an Ivy League school in the US? You know, Harvard's and Yale's are the creme de la cremes, basically. And I said, no, you don't have to, because look where I am. I'm supervising their students instead. And did I come from Harvard? I didn't. So I don't know how else to advise you, but do not, you know, do not waste your time studying law wherever it is. It will come in handy, and it's the way you, I don't know, the way you use it in the future, and it's your mindset also. So yeah, in the past, I think I wanted to follow the footsteps of my brothers by becoming a flight attendant. Hence, I look like a Cathay Pacific flight attendant today, I just realized. But you know, I was too short. I was too short for that job. So I said, okay, dude, screw you. I won't be serving coffee and tea next time. I'll be the ones, you know, who gets served coffee and tea. And but funnily enough, I traveled quite a bit, which is not really good for the environment, but at least I pack a punch when I attend these conferences. I'm not there for one reason. I'm there for 10 reasons, you know? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I ask for those that would like to make questions to Mrs. Chin to hold a bit for the final round, just to keep track of time. And then I would like to invite then Mrs. Moreva. Let me see. I don't have Mrs. Moreva now on my screen.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, I see you, Mrs. Moreva. Mrs. Moreva graduated actually in 2020. Am I correct, Mrs. Moreva? Yes. Now, yes. From our program, International and EU Law program at the Hague University of Applied Science. And in 2020, she started a master's in international business law, climate change and sustainability from Vrije Universiteit, Amsterdam. And in 2016, she was the first winner of the Hague Debate Tournament. I didn't know until I was reading your bio. She's currently the founder and director of Van Moor Institute for Renewable Energy BV, Established in 2019, the company is specialized in creating sustainable energy solutions through the production and sale of mini wind turbines and hybrid electric stations. Mrs. Moreva has also been a founder and chairwoman of the Ambient and Health Planet. During her studies, she assisted the legal department of Solaire, Juristenkantoor, then forgive me, in Amsterdam for 5 years before moving on to Dentons. As a legal assistant at Dentons, she works with various departments include M&A, notary, and banking and finance department. And since 2014, she has covered matters on international affairs and human rights as an I reporter at CNN. Ms. Moreva has also since 2015 enjoying volunteering at Amnesty International, the Netherlands. Ms. Moreva, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Nobrega, and also thank you all for listening. I'm the last but not least. I would like to actually prepare something. I would like to share my presentation with you. Let's see how the screen works. All right. Do you see it fully now? All right, I press on present. Is it full screen?
Yeah, it works.
Yes.
Yes, all right, perfect. My name is Liliana Moreva, and thank you all. Thank you for inviting me. I'll keep it short. I know we have not so much time. I would like to first talk about the work experience I had and what led me to environmental affairs career. I would like to talk also about Van Moor that I'm doing now, and also I prepared the, so to say, life hacks for the students listening, how to get that job. All right, let's start. Okay, work experience. All right, so basically, indeed, I graduated in 2020. Nevertheless, I was working at the same time. And before starting my career at Dentons, I worked at the boutique law firm, Solier Juristenkantoor, and which provided corporate solutions for mainly clients from the ex-Soviet Union. So basically, actually using my mother tongue, which is Russian. I'm Russian myself. And it gave me a boost in order to be more sound on employment market. Indeed, it was a valuable experience. I did it part-time. It was very hard next to my studies. Nevertheless, here we go. Next slide is about, right, just like that. About Dentons, I worked at 4 different departments as a private assistant and paralegal. I worked with top professionals. I'm very proud of it. It was one hell of a journey. It was beautiful and at the time very hard working, sometimes hard to work. Nevertheless, I think I got my most experience out of it. How come I was working for many departments is it's actually by luck, because at that point the M&A partner at the law firm was not having so much projects, and I was more involved into notary, which I actually didn't expect, because I myself was enrolled at the same time at our law course. So, but it was nevertheless exciting, and I used my knowledge into for the research, for the legal representation, for preparing for top projects. I cannot disclose many projects that I was working for, because most of them are still very confidential, including governments. But yeah, I was really impressed by their work and how they handled the cases and how they spoke to different clients. All this billable hours, very large invoices that I've seen as well coming out. I mean, at top law firms, our fee it can be actually up to 1,500, if not more, depends on the case. But usually for a partner, it's around 500 or so. But then I was lucky enough to work at banking and finance as a BA, and it also helped me to delve into the world of corporate law, which I was very excited about at the time. And afterwards, I was actually, before the university, you have to go through the internship. So I was like, hey, I would like actually to go through internship at tax department, because at that time the Panama papers were released, and I was very much interested how that all works. And actually, it was a really great experience. Next slide. It gave me the insight at one of the top law firms in the world, working at Zaudas, being professional, communicating with colleagues, actually participating at many events. That's one from Prague you see here. It's a sports tournament. So it gave me this network that actually I'm still having, and I'm still very proud to have. And also I made friends for life there. But somehow, despite that it was like one of the top law firms, there was still something missing what I was doing. And I just realized day by day that I would like to do something more meaningful. So here I have a quote from Dostoevsky, and it says, I don't see the code. All right, so deprived of meaningful work, men and women lose their reason for existence. And it's actually so essential, because you can work at any department you want, but if you don't feel that it's meaningful enough, that it adds value to what you're doing throughout the day, and as previous delegate said, that it's something that you is that something that you want to do when you wake up? And my question was, no, not really, because I don't really want to make corporations richer. And I see a lot of, and I mean, we can discuss it for a long time, that our system needs correction. There's climate change is real. We see its consequences. And I was like, I was thinking, what can I do more about it? So I was like, I would like to add value by finding feasible solutions, by working on something meaningful. And because I have found a passion for environmental protection. And I was like searching for the missions with impact. And impact is one of the most, I think, relatable words in environmental affairs, because you are feeling inspired by thinking local, thinking global, but acting local. So in this way, next slide. All right. In this way, I actually enrolled myself to the master program, which I'm still doing at the VU. And just as a previous colleague said, Charlene, that indeed having good grades help you to get into university, despite it's being applied. I mean, graduated from applied sciences. I went there without any pre-master or whatever. And next to it, because as far as you see, I really like multitasking and studying and working at the same time. I founded, together with my partners and family members, we founded Van More, which is more than a company. I wanted to create something that is making change. And as you heard previously from other speakers, is that they work on the academic, researching, and actually litigating, advocating. And I was thinking about the other side of the problem. And the other side is corporations. Government so it is, of course, but corporations are making the most of the environmental issues. And I thought, can you make a corporation which is actually good for environment, which has actually which produces meaningful work and changes the environment? So here you go, you see Van More Institute for Renewable Energy. It is institute which attracts scientists around the world to actually invest into their products and make them appear on the market. I mean, needless to say that renewable energy is one of the ways to combat the climate change. So today we produce mini wind turbines up to 3 meters tall, which can be installed in greenhouses, industrial site, real estate, and they cut down the CO2. So my point is that it's very practical company, and this is how I also show my interest in environmental affairs. But I would like to actually make this point about the skills that I have. Indeed, you can say that now I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businesswoman. Nevertheless, the skills that I received and I've been receiving, having a lawyer education, helped me immensely. Because, let's continue the slides. Yes, what I wanted to say is that you have to have certain skills to get employed, because this is the actually idea of this event, to understand what can be done in order to sound more attractive to your future employers. So I just made a few slides to envisage that. All right, so first step, you guys, let's get that motivation. I mean, 2020 was a harsh year for all of us. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of our mental health. We have to have healthy diet, sport, and be inspired, because I think in environmental affairs, money is not your motivation. It's saving the world is your motivation. So stick to that. It's important to have a good mindset and believe in yourself and be confident and have a positive yet realistic outlook. And another one is academic knowledge. Always stay hungry for knowledge. Know your interests, know what attracts you, and be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and research as much as possible. Participate in any event that sounds appealing to you. And step 3, skill is representation. What I've learned so far, it's one of the most useful lessons I've ever received from Mr. Johnson. Say hi from me, is that you have to have clear, concise, coherent communication. That's very important. And if you think that you cannot, for example, present in front of many people or anything like that, it's the skill that you can learn, of course, through the hard work, through fighting your fears. Nevertheless, every skill that you can imagine, you're able to achieve with hard work. Then articulation of the reasoning, that's part of the communication, be presentable, and building up your network. I mean, right now, you're perhaps in year 3 or 4 or 2, doesn't matter. You can also start now by adding your fellow students to your LinkedIn profile and stay connected, because sometimes, you know, the network is something that you can start working on right now. And the following slide is just a quick overview, just like life hacking for getting employed. So first of all, LinkedIn, have a professional picture, have all your experiences, projects that you were working on in there. It's very important. And just as mentioned by Alejandra, 1-pager CV. Nobody's gonna look at 3 pages. When I was working for Dentons, you will be lucky if your future employer will be attracted by your CV to even have a glimpse at it, because most of the time it's just before the interview it gets printed out, and then you skim through and see the most important point. If it's just 5 pages, nobody's gonna read that. Motivation letter is very important. Read company policies, read their philosophy. Does it sound appealing to you? You don't have to rephrase everything they say there, but find the points that you have in common. It's very important. Then our university, the Hague University of Applied Science, has an honors program. Perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps not, but research about that. There is so much that you can do within university and outside. Events, needless to say, there are lots of events taking place. Come there and network. I mean, now the corona measures are being lifted off, so you can participate hopefully face to face. Then we have Isla Journal. You're able to make your first academic article and be published and put it on your LinkedIn. Very nice. And then we also have different junior associations. If you participate in there with like-minded people, you grow your network and you are practicing your communication skills. Debating, that's also what I mentioned. It was lovely to participate years ago, and even if you think you can't debate, you can learn it. You can see people debating, you can participate, and it would be very fun for you. And also moot courts will give you a boost for representation, because I believe just you have to be sound in writing, of course, but you can also be sound in representation. It's equally important. All right. Okay. All right, so what we see now is that what I'm doing, I mean, I'm a student and I am a business founder at the same time. Nevertheless, the skills that I've learned at HHS helped me immensely. I mean, let's go through the list again. Legal analysis, advising, representation, decision-making, regulating, file management, organization, legal communication. It's all the things that you learn through the course and you can directly apply them. I mean, right? It's University of Applied Science, so we can apply those skills. All right. So again, I'm using my representation skills and invite you to connect to LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can add me and ask me about my experience. And also, I would like to add all of the speakers currently presenting. You guys are amazing. I feel very inspired by what you discussed, and I feel like I've just graduated, but nevertheless, I had the work experience at the same time, parallel to studies, which also helped me. So, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, let me hear them.
Mrs. Moreva, thank you very much. Then I would like to then just to read a compliment from the chat. So the graphics in your presentation are really beautiful. Just that you know.
Thank you.
And I don't see hands up, but there are questions. Please open your microphone and go ahead.
I'll ask something, but I'm not sure if you're gonna know the answer because I'm just really curious about how you managed to get accepted into Fly University without a pre-master. And I'm not sure if you were told or not, but I just want to know if you can think of one thing that made you stand out amongst other applicants. If you can think for yourself, was it your internships or was it your extracurriculars, or was there anything in particular that you felt was the decisive factor? I think you're the first alumni of our program to get into Fly University without a pre-master. So yeah, I'm really impressed that you did it, and it's also really helpful because that is what opens the floor for those of us that come after you guys who opened the way for us to have these sort of opportunities that we wouldn't otherwise have. It's happened with other Dutch universities that now accept alumni of The Hague University without pre-masters, and it's all because previous alumni managed to do it once and then made those schools realize that we actually have the potential and the skills needed to do these master's degrees without doing the pre-master. So actually, thank you as well for managing to do that, because it's quite an accomplishment for not just for yourself, but for all of us actually.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I just believe the impossible. I mean, in Dutch you have expression like no, you already have, but yes, you can achieve, right? So I think the main reason for me getting accepted is the motivational part, because I actually attended the open day. I showed up. I talked to the head of the program. I explained that, you know, I have graduated from applied sciences. Nevertheless, I love your program. I have extracurricular activities. I have good grades. Hereby, I participated in many events. I have some accolades. I, of course, one more helped me. That I'm myself a founder of renewable energy business. And for them, they didn't respond what exactly was their point that they accepted me. It remains a secret, but I believe that everything you do could be taken into account. If you show up, you are genuinely interested, and you knock on the doors, maybe they will open. You don't know if they will, but maybe they will, you know? So for me, it was, I attended the open day. I talked to the head, and also I emailed them with the list, and also what can what can actually make influence, I believe, is the referral letters. So I had one referral letter from my employers, and that could have helped. Yes, and Danton's has a name. I mean, yeah, that's something that was handy. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Please, Alejandro.
Sorry, I'm not on my computer and it's in German and I don't know German. I don't know how to raise the hand. So anyways, question. I really like your presentation, and basically I'm doing an internship doing kind of the same. They just try to implement like greener solutions for energy and for waste problems, and they're doing in Latin America, and I'm Latino, I speak Spanish, so it was very nice. And I'm trying to do an impact in this very small company, and I really liked it, and I thought of for the first time that companies can be good the same way they said it. I thought that companies were bad, and why would I go for that? But I ended up working in this very nice company, and I think that also you're doing that in Famor. And I just wanted to ask you, how is it going? Like, because I'm planning to go that way too, and is it? I know it's worth it, because I mean, otherwise, why I wouldn't be interested. But like, I just wanted to see how is that situation going in that firm? I mean, I think you founded it, right, or co-founded it?
Yeah.
Quite impressive. So I just wanted to ask you about it.
Thank you. Well, it's actually we are still at the startup phase because it is relatively unused product on the Dutch market. Nevertheless, we have two successful project sites, one in The Hague and one on the boat that we installed the wind turbine behind the boat, which I think the most renewable and sustainable boat in the Netherlands. And we are now working at promotion, because actually due to Corona crisis, it was hard for us to actually make an event to attract to make our appear on the market, because these kind of things are made face to face. You make an event with a nice presentation, you invite the network, but so far we have a clear strategy in mind. We are also networking with many cooperational organizations that help to successfully and feasibly realize projects, for example, in Amsterdam or in The Hague. And step by step, you'll see hopefully more and more small wind turbines appearing in the Netherlands, because just as solar panels, wind turbines are also able to achieve to actually produce energy and create sustainable solutions. For example, in the area of Schiphol, it's not possible to install large wind turbines because of the safety measures. So think of that. Then what is the solution? Solar panels, but also wind turbines. But we also say that we can work together with solar panels. That's why you see the hybrid electric stations. So now it's still a startup phase. Nevertheless, I hope that I will also make it, how to say, I will announce the internship at my company as well soon, and then we can also make researches and stuff like that. So it's still in startup, but we have clear strategy and we have a good network, and we know where we're going to make our product more visible on the market. Thank you.
Yes, Koen, you are next. I see the hands up.
Yes, hi. I had my hand up, but basically by answering Alejandro's question, Ms. Moreva also answered mine, so I don't really have anything to ask anymore.
Yes, I can then move. There's one question in the chat. So, Ms. Moreva, how did you manage to do all the work and the studies together?
I am stubborn. I think I thought that I could do it all. Well, it turned out that it was hard. It was really hard, but I had my study delay as well. So there are solutions to every problem, and it's not a problem if you have solutions. But it's just a joke. But it was really hard indeed, but it helped me with having a skill such as time management, which is still not perfect, but I'm getting there. But no, I didn't have any like in Harry Potter the watch. You know, Hermione had. She could appear in 2 classes at the same time. That would be wonderful. But just I had great motivation, and I think in your 20s you have a great amount of energy as well. That said, I also had I suffered from a car accident in those same years, so it was even more hard with having a brain concussion. But stubbornness and motivation and hard work break the wall. That's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moreva. I would like, we have a few minutes to go. I don't see any hands up at the moment. Lauriani?
Yeah, I do have a question for Madame Berthier.
Yes, so then I will open, of course, for the final round. Please, Lauriane, you can start. So questions to all panelists can pop up. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering if, as you had your the bar, you took the bar exam and you managed to get a French license. I was wondering, do you recommend us as like French, students, but not studying national law? If we want to work in advocacy, do you recommend us to, like, I don't know, try to get a national bar exam, or is it? Do you think we don't necessarily have to? Question. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. So to do advocacy,
yeah,
to do advocacy work, I'd say no. I'd say the bar exam is less necessary, of course, than if you really wanted to do litigation, and that's also why we do, of course, hire people who haven't taken the bar exam at Client-Earth as well, because actually a significant part of our work is advocacy, and so it's really getting engaged in the legislative processes, in speaking with the European institutions or national public authorities. So no, I mean, if you know that you won't be doing litigation and that it's really not your thing, I would not advise you to take the bar exam. The only thing is that life is such that you don't really know what you're going to end up doing. And actually, I would advise you doing as many internships. I mean, except if you're getting hired right away, of course, which would be great. But until then, I really would advise you to have as many internship and experience as possible, and not necessarily the ones that you think are going to be the most interesting or really the one you think you want to be doing, but also the others, because it's not always what it seems to be. And you may end up being interested in something that you would have never thought you would be. So experience is great, but also to meet people, because generally, if it happens the right way, one experience leads to another, and then you meet someone in an internship that introduces you to someone else, and then yeah. But yeah, for the bar exam, it's not essential. If you know you're not going to do litigation, then I would not. I mean, don't be obsessed by that, especially to do advocacy. I mean, yeah, no.
I had another question, but it was asked in the chat. It was regarding whether or not Client-Earth was taking interns, or was like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, of course we do take interns, but now we've grown so much that it's become really so. You know, we have procedures, and so the opportunities are published on the website. So look in the website. Yeah, that's really the way to go. You can always try and send emails sometimes, but we really need to go the official way now. So yeah, so look on the website or contact a lawyer, and then I mean, we can inform you on whether there are vacancies, and then you can apply, and we look at your candidacy. And we've been hiring lots of interns. I mean, internships do end up in jobs, and really, So that's the way to go. I mean, if you do a good job, if you're nice to work with as well, because personality is really important. Don't forget that. Be nice. I mean, you know, nice to be around with. That's really important as well. We want to be working with people we feel comfortable, we're happy to be around with. So, but internships do end up in jobs if we have the funding, if we're looking for that position. It does happen a lot.
Thank you, Mrs. Berthier. There is next Noemi.
Thank you so much. I can see that we're already a bit over time, so I will try to keep it short. Thank you so much for being here today and speaking to us. It was incredibly enlightening. And my question goes into the direction of motivation, because I feel like, and you've also mentioned that motivation is really difficult, especially in this field, because there's so much. So I just wanted to hear generally, where do you find your motivation, and yeah, how, like, could you share that with us? It would be incredible.
Yes, I mute myself. Motivation is something, okay, how I get my motivation is, let's imagine you are in your 80s or 90s or 100s, and you're lucky, you have children, you have a house, and then you look back at all these years that you had, and you think, like, you're realistic that we all die and stuff like that. It's a normal part of life. And what is left behind? What impact do you have? What meaning do you what meaning did you have of your life? And watching movies also about how our world is designed in such a way that we harm our planet is something which is sinister, yet that makes me motivated to have a change, to inspire people, to change the world, not in it, not wholesome, but around, inside me, around myself as well. And if every other person would think like this, maybe we would have a different world. So this is my motivation. Think about what good I can make to people, what good can make to myself. Of course, you have to first take care of yourself, but what's going to be left behind? You pass away. What is left? What is your legacy? What did you do? Did you work from 9 till 5 and were happy with your pension? Or did you work at meaningful projects which changed lives and helped the nature? I think this is it. Thank you.
One last question from Miss Auriami.
Yes. I also want to thank you all for sharing your expertise and your experiences. I think we've seen such a stark difference from like senior environmentalists to beginner environmentalists, I would say, or junior environmentalists. But I would like to ask whether working in an NGO allows you to do more for the environment than working in a governmental organization. Well, for whoever works in an NGO, I mean.
I guess floor is not mine because I'm not working for NGO.
Yeah, it's just a more general question for the panelists, really. Yeah.
So maybe I can jump in. And I mean, I think that working on an NGO in a way gives you more freedom to do things. So if you work for the government, you have to take into account all the bureaucracy, and that is harder perhaps to make changes. Nevertheless, I think that is essential that people working for the government also has this intention of helping and protecting human rights and protecting the environment. So I think that both places, either an NGO or a governmental organization, can provide you with the right platform to create change. Nevertheless, and this is a personal opinion, I feel more free on an NGO, especially an NGO like Greenpeace, which is so active, and into actions and working with activists all over the world. So I feel that it allows me to do more. But I completely understand if people want to go into the governmental field, you know, and it's also super relevant and important. And I don't know if the rest of the panelists would like to add to my answer.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I totally agree with you that I think we definitely have more freedom because we also need to choose on what file we work, who we want to influence, and etc., who we meet, and there is maybe as well less hierarchy. But I mean, you need to try. It's a question of personality as well. And it's a question with whom you work. I mean, you may enjoy yourself and work with great people in a public authority or even in a company. Something I wanted to say as well is that, of course, when you work in an NGO, you face a lot the industry, but actually companies, some of the biggest companies are also taking the right directions right now. There are stuff happening. So it's a really, I mean, it's really exciting times. There is, for example, a legislation that is going to be adopted at EU level on sustainable corporate governance and due diligence obligations for companies to ensure that they respect human rights or protect the environment throughout their value chains and so on. So you should not, I think, just decide not to work for the industry necessarily, because you may find great people as well and great companies doing great stuff, whereas you can be super bored in an NGO. So don't have barriers, or again, try and see what you prefer. But it's true that in terms of freedom, I think that we are very, very free in NGOs.
Thank you very much. Due to the time, we are 8 minutes over time, but I would say that it's acceptable. I just would like to thank very much our panelists. It was an amazing session, a cross-cutting message, I would say, motivation, and doing what you like and being proactive was very clear to achieve what you want, and this is very good to hear. I think our students really had very good taste of what is working in the environmental affairs from different perspectives, and also at the turning points in their careers. So thank you very much, Mrs. Berthier, Mrs. Chin, Mrs. Moreva, and also Mrs. Serra, for this pleasant panel, and for making the time for being here with the students that were able to join in the room, but also for all the others that are watching this on YouTube live streamed as well. So we really appreciate, and I hope that all of you enjoyed very much. And if the panelists would like then to say bye, then the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
And good luck
Thank you
in
so
the
much.
future
Thank you very much.
endeavors.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.